Welcome, and thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're going to be talking about health and fitness, but probably in a way that most people don't tend to hear about. Bodybuilding is the order of the day, and fitness. But let's try it from a vegan approach. The book is simply titled Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, and our guest today is Mr. Robert Cheeke. Robert, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
What an interesting path when you started on your bodybuilding career, if you will, back in 2000. You're 157 pounds. Within a year's time, you gained almost 30 pounds. And This was all on a vegan diet? How was that possible?
Yeah, that is totally accurate, and it's possible because I ate enough calories, I ate enough grams of protein, I ate frequently enough, and I trained consistently enough to elicit those kind of changes. And so what I tell people is that anything can be accomplished, whether we're trying to gain weight, lose weight, regardless of what diet we follow, if we follow the sequence of events, basically having the passion for it, because why be healthy anyway? Why be fit anyway? Who cares? What does it mean to you? Answer that question sincerely. Have the passion to fuel all your efforts, and then create a consistent program. Consistency leads to adaptation. Improvement is a byproduct of adaptation. Success follows improvement. Shared success is what follows that, which inspires others, and it's just a great chain of events.
Well, that certainly seems like a lot to tackle when you want to be a bodybuilder.
Yeah. It's just something that for me was always something that was really interesting. I grew up idolizing fictional characters like He-Man and Captain Planet, and I was the smallest kid in school. Not only was I 157 pounds when I really jumped into bodybuilding, I was only 89 pounds when I was 14, and 120 pounds when I became vegan. And I really had to trust myself and trust people around me that it could be done without any animal products at all, even coming from my background of being the smallest kid in school.
Mm-hmm. Now, what made you decide you hadn't been really first of all, describe what a vegan actually is. What is their diet or lifestyle?
Right. The lifestyle is abstaining from all animal products.
Okay.
And the use of animal products and byproducts. So we're talking about food, so not consuming any meat, dairy, eggs, or other animal byproducts. We're talking about clothing, cosmetics, products, just soaps and shampoos that have been tested on animals. It's avoiding all of those things. So it's reducing cruelty and suffering to animals in every aspect we can think of, because it goes far beyond food, because we know there's animal testing, there's circuses and zoos and captivities and all these different avenues that exploit animals, and it's living a very compassionate lifestyle that avoids as much as possible all of those areas.
Yeah, I know one thing is true. If anybody had ever seen the documentary Earthlings, they would realize, wow, this is a pretty rough road here that we're going down when it comes to the exploitation of animals. And was that
absolutely
one of the big reasons that you moved in this direction, was just because of that?
Yeah, exactly. I grew up on a farm,
okay.
And I had animals on the farm, everything from guinea pigs and rabbits to chickens, cows, ducks, geese, you name it. And I was involved in the 4-H program, so I would raise animals throughout the 4-H program, show the animals at the county fair, and then I would, in some cases, usually every single year, take them off to the auction to be sold, and I didn't really know where they were going because I was just a kid. And then my sister informed me of what was really going on once the animals who I had as friends, first name basis, just like a dog or a cat, where my friends were going, and that was to be turned into food. And that was that concerned me. That didn't make me very happy. And so it was during that time, 1995, that I decided I no longer wanted to contribute to animal suffering, understanding at a young age that we all have one thing in common, regardless of where we're from, what our race is, our background, or even what our species is. But we have this unbelievable burning desire just to be free, live a pain-free life, to not suffer and not be in fear and not to be exploited and used, and came to that conclusion, and I've stuck with that the last 16 or 17 years, and have clearly dedicated my life to that in the form of activism through my book, through documentaries that I've done, through my websites, through my talks around the country, and my day-to-day interactions with people.
Now, bodybuilding is an interesting world in and of itself, and it really began to gain prominence, especially when the documentary Pumping Iron came out. Arnold Schwarzenegger, no doubt, has made this huge. Now, taking a look at the vegan bodybuilder, would you say that as you began to approach bodybuilding from this particular direction that you kind of met up with some prejudices, if you will?
Met up with some what?
Prejudices, if you will, against with other bodybuilders?
Sure. Because there's an expectation in bodybuilding that one should consume as much animal protein as possible. One should consume that frequently to the point of taking all kinds of supplements and eating consistently, maybe even waking up in the middle of the night just to eat more. And it was just protein from animals was synonymous with bodybuilding and with muscle growth. And, of course, there's another side of bodybuilding, which is all the drug use and steroid use and everything like that. And so to come into this world and jump right into it as someone who is completely drug-free, lifetime drug-free, even alcohol-free and everything, and animal product-free, and comes from a very, I don't know if you want to say pure or passionate or compassionate lifestyle, and be in this sport that focuses on such extremes in other directions, it was very interesting, to say the least, to experience those first few years. And yeah, I met Arnold right at the beginning. I mean, there's a photo of me and Arnold in my book. I met Arnold at the beginning, who is obviously a role model for millions and millions, including myself, and met all these other bodybuilders. And I found them to be open to what I was doing. I found them to be supportive to what I was doing, because to be a bodybuilder in the first place, you're already part of a really specific community.
Right.
Because you all share that passion of just wanting to be your personal best or your physical best. It's something that we all strive for in athletics, but the bodybuilders really are kind of unique to themselves in their own community in that way. So regardless of whether you're doing it with drugs or without drugs, with steroids, without steroids, with lots of meat, eggs, dairy products, or without any, we all share a common bond. And so I did find some people who were supportive, including some of the biggest and best bodybuilders in the world. And obviously I also ran into people who said, this will never happen, don't waste your time, including some of my best friends. I mean, they're like, come on, I mean, first of all, you're a distance runner, and on top of that, you're vegan. Don't get your hopes up too much for bodybuilding. It's probably not in the cards for you. Stick to what you're used to, stick to what you're good at, and you
gotta love those well-meaning relationships that keep you from a dream, don't you?
yeah. I write about that. I write about that a lot, including it's in the dedication of one of my books that says, the book is dedicated to the millions and millions of dreams that have gone unfulfilled because someone in our life who we trusted said we were never good enough.
Right.
A parent, a best friend, a coach, a teacher, a family member, or all of the above, which is the case for most people, which is where dreams come crumbling down. But I'll tell you, one of my absolute best friends, met him when I was 4 years old, we're still best friends today. He was one of the guys that was really, at first, like, this may not work, this probably won't work, don't get too excited about it. He's the guy I give the most credit to in my book. He's got a few photos of himself with me in my book, and he's turned out to be probably my biggest supporter in the history of my vegan bodybuilding career. But he challenged me at the beginning to question whether I had it in me, whether it was possible, and I knew what I was capable of, and I knew the best way to accomplish something is just to do it, just to lead by example, and just do it. Whether people had done it before or not didn't matter. And my friend Jordan, he really challenged me to prove that I could do something that was totally foreign in that world.
It's interesting, Robert, to think about you getting started. You must have felt like you were pretty much the only one who was a bodybuilder who was also a vegan all at the same time. But as I was reading in your book, from you in the beginning, with a website that was just about you, as you say in your book, it was up to 3,500 vegan athletes. So there are a lot of people out there who are athletes, maybe even professional, that a lot of us don't know about, that are on this direction. So it seems like it's something that really holds water as far as, health is really concerned? Because I know back in the day there was some concerns, for instance, about, let's say, Bill Walton, who played for the Portland Trail Blazers, started going out in his career with, knee injuries, and they were starting to kind of point the finger saying, well, that figures because he was a vegetarian. But let's go ahead and kind of dispel some of the myths about vegan athletes and whether or not a plant-based diet really either takes away or can enhance their actual overall health.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. When I first started, it was even called veganbodybuilder.com, just about me, because I didn't know anybody else doing it. Now, when I wrote the book, 3,500 members, we're now over 5,000 now that the book is out. 5,000 vegan athletes. I just spent time with a bunch of them on this vegan-themed cruise in the Caribbean last week. I'm staying in a house with some other vegan athletes right now in Anaheim, California for a Natural Products Expo. There's vegan athletes everywhere I go. They stop me all the time, whether it's just in a random place like on the street because they recognize me from the internet or my book, or they come to my talks or a festival or something, introduce themselves. And I realize they are walking among us everywhere, whether we know them as a household name or they're on the internet or not. It doesn't matter. The vegan athletes are out there. They're out there in professional sports, amateur sports, weekend warriors, and it's fantastic to see. Now let's talk about it. Okay, let's just look at this from a logical standpoint. So we need vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, glucose, these things essential for life. These are absolutely essential, the things that make us thrive as people, as athletes, etc. These same things, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, glucose, come in their original forms from plant-based whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, seeds, legumes. That's just the way it is. That's where they originate. And if we're eating any other way, we're getting a secondary source of that nutrition. And so we're basically getting the foods that another animal ate, turned it into their own muscle, and then we're getting some sort of secondary byproduct of that, often along with cholesterol, saturated fat, toxins, antibiotics, all these different things. So I tell people if you want to be the best and you want to be the healthiest, why not go to where it starts? Why not go to where it originates? And that's plant-based whole foods. That's alkaline-forming foods, hydrating foods, where you get the highest quality of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and everything else. It makes sense. You have great recovery time. It's easy on the joints. In fact, it really helps with joints. They're the foods that provide the most energy naturally, high carbohydrate, real whole food sources of sugars and total energy anyway. So it's not an issue or a problem to get protein, which we think is elusive. Where can we possibly find this? It's in pretty much everything, and in higher amounts, in dark green vegetables, in nuts, in seeds, in beans, in legumes, things like that. It's almost impossible, just mathematically, just the way it is. It's almost impossible to not get enough protein if we're eating adequate calories because of the way the macronutrient breakdown of percentage of protein, carbohydrates, and fats. It's almost impossible to not get enough protein when we're just eating a real basic level of calories.
That's really quite fascinating, and, when you take a look at the common sense of it, where do you think animals get their food from? Most of the time, it's vegetarian or plant-based.
Sure. A lot of the big, strong animals that we eat are herbivores. They eat plants, and sure, we all have different stomachs and intestines and digestion and things like that, but that doesn't matter. Even if we just look at human nutrition, all of these different things make sense. Where plant-based whole foods provide the energy, the protein, the amino acids, vitamins, minerals, digestive enzymes, all these different things, and it's the animal products that actually cause the illness and the problems and things like that. That raise our blood cholesterol levels, that tend to be directly related to heart disease, stroke, cancer, obesity, diabetes. All of these different things are directly connected with consumption of animal products. And the amazing thing is we can prevent and reverse so many of these diseases by simply adopting a plant-based diet. So not only does it do all the good things it's supposed to do for us, it can also bail us out when we follow a poor diet. We switch over to a plant-based diet, and all of a sudden, there comes the energy back. There goes the cholesterol. It's lowered, and there goes blood pressure getting lowered again, and better circulation, and all these things. So it's simply, at the end of the day, It just comes down to mathematics and science, and it makes sense.
Now, Robert, if you can, tell us about your journey from the time that you first picked up a weight with the intention of being a bodybuilder to when you felt like, I have arrived for the most part, the summit is here. This is more than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, I kind of like that expression too. That that I've arrived, because I've felt that. There have been specific moments where I really have felt that in the beginning. Can you imagine how hard it was to get started when you're so small and so skinny? You're lifting these little weights in a gym filled with muscular people that you hope that someday, for your own reasons, for your own personal reasons, maybe it's been a lifelong dream, maybe it's so you can represent a cause or stand up for something, or just be stronger and have more self-confidence, whatever it is. Can you imagine how hard that is when you're in that environment, when you're just getting started, and the easiest thing in the entire world is to give up? And we know that in every area of life, whether it's academics, relationships, the workplace, health, or fitness, it's the easiest thing in the world is to give up. So I had this ability, I guess, I've had it throughout my whole life, to be able to see a couple steps ahead, or sometimes many steps ahead, years ahead. I knew what consistency did, because I understood how we learned a language, how we learned new skills, how we got better at something. Was through immersion, through just throwing ourselves in there and applying ourselves consistently with as much determination that we could muster, with all the dedication in the world. And so I did that, the early days, lifting the little weights and just hoping they would get bigger, and then watching, wow, look at this adaptation over 1 year, gain 30 pounds, and all of a sudden I have muscles I never saw before, and I'm now pursuing this passion that I've had for years, and it's working, and I'm finding myself on my 21st birthday hanging out with Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these different things. Like, how did this happen? Well, it happened through passion, belief in oneself, and applying oneself with amazing consistency and dedication. And then years later, when I realized, wow, I'm up here on the stage at the National Bodybuilding World Championships. I feel like I've arrived now. I've made it. And when I filmed a movie in 2005 and actually had it do well and have people in 30 or 40 countries watch it, and it was like, wow, people are actually interested in what I'm doing. Like, people take the time to care. This is, I feel like I've arrived. That expression you said. And then as I continued to compete and win competitions, I've won multiple times, and that's where I was really, legitimized, where I've been in the game for years now. I've been doing it on a 100% plant-based diet. I've been doing it from a background where many people said I had no business being in the sport, and I was able to win. And that really made it a legitimate cause that other people could look at and say, wow, this is possible. This guy arrived. He did it, and he did it from a completely different background. He wasn't already a big football player guy who adopted a plant-based diet and just held on to muscle. He built it all from scratch. And that's kind of where I felt like I arrived. And then, of course, when I wrote my book, after competing a bunch of times in 2009, and I trained so hard, was so dedicated in 2009, when I was done getting off the stage for the last time, I just sat down and wrote. And when that book came out, that's when I really, for the last time, felt like, okay, I made it again. And of course, having people read it and enjoy it. That's because anybody can write a book, but you hope people are going to buy it. You hope people are going to enjoy it. You hope their life's going to change in some way. And thankfully, that's been the case based on the feedback and the reviews on Amazon and other websites. It's really been amazing and fulfilling and just awesome to sit back and watch and see what kind of impact it's had.
Now, have you had any critics that have kind of come out and said, don't you think you're kind of misguiding people a little bit here? I mean, really, a plant-based diet, you're bodybuilding, you're just looking for trouble. Do you have anything like that happens?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I don't have as many critics as I expected. I really expected
going down. Well, that's a surprise.
well, really, going down this path 10 years ago or so, I expected to get hate mail, critics, all kinds of people, because I'm challenging our ways of thinking. I'm even telling people, don't support this industry, don't support this industry, don't support these products, don't support this, and here's why. And I expected to be eaten alive by an audience. But there's something to be said about sincere passion and belief in something. And it's so hard, and I say this in my talks around the country, it is so hard to criticize someone who believes in themselves and dedicates their life to something, even if you disagree with them. It's just very hard because it's so rare to see someone like that. I mean, how many people do you know who care so much about something that they put everything they have into it, they put everything else on hold, they dedicate their life to it? We don't have many people in our life like that. And so when we see someone like that, it's inspiring on some level, or at least it deters us from trying to break that person down. Because why put someone down? We want to raise our own reputation by lowering others. It's really not very nice. Most people are good people, and I think the only time people really criticize sincerely is when they're actually concerned. When they think, well, you know, I just disagree. Fundamentally, I disagree. I don't think this is a safe way to go, when clearly I have the opposite standpoint when I say, really? Okay. So 200 million plus people in this country who are unhealthy, who are obese, have diabetes, all these different things, who are following a standard American diet, I would say that's very, very dangerous, and that's a path you should not go down. And there's 200 million reasons why. And so we have this. I think the only real sincere critics are those who are actually concerned, who either don't know any better, or who simply firmly believe that animal products are good for health, despite all their correlations with disease and health concerns. And of course, there are some people who may not like the book. I've had a few reviews. It's for the most part getting 5-star reviews, but some people just don't like the book. They just don't like certain aspects of it. They don't like some of the meal programs. They don't like maybe my writing style, and so you get critics like that too. And that's okay, because there's a balance. You get the people who have their lives completely changed by it, and those completely outnumber and outweigh the ones who thought, oh, this book was a waste of time. But being out there in public, you're going to get that, and you have to really. And this is another thing, I don't really talk about it much, but, you know, I come from a small town and kind of quiet upbringing, I guess, and, you know, just went to high school and then went to school after that, and then all of a sudden I was I kind of thrusted myself into being in millions of magazine issues and in movies and on TV and in books. I'm featured in a bunch of other books and getting recognized and all this stuff, and you really have to develop a pretty tough skin, because you realize that not everyone's going to like you, and they're going to talk about that. And so you have to kind of prepare yourself for that. And so that's been one of the hardest adjustments for me, I would say, is adapting to being in the public eye and trying to live up to expectation and make everybody happy as often as possible.
Yeah, it certainly is its own little task, isn't it? Yeah. You're always on, you're always being watched, and you're always being, if you get caught in a couple photos not being in your top shape, and those go all over the internet, then okay, this vegan thing, it doesn't work because of this image, and you really have to watch what you do, what you say, who you talk to, and how you perform. And I'm really transparent and open and honest with people, and so I just kind of go about my life and do my thing, whether people like it or not. Our guest today, Robert Cheeke, joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. The book is Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, the complete guide to building your body on a plant-based diet. Now, for those who don't have a copy of this, as I have one right here in front of me, will realize that as you go through this book, there's meals that you have in here that you suggest for people to be using. The other thing is you actually have the bodybuilding regimen, and you have a lot of great stories in here about your particular journey. And I bet you know, as I was reading through this, I realized you were surprised by some of the outcomes when you decided to embark on this path. What was some of the things that really surprised you the most, where you thought, I'm into bodybuilding, but how did this come into my path?
Right. You know, there's been a lot of surprising things. Some things I was able to anticipate ahead of time, you know, because I do pay so much attention to visualizing and seeing things a few steps ahead before they happen, and really planning things out and knowing how to write my own ticket and create my own path. But, you know, I guess I didn't know I would make those gains initially so fast, where I went from 157 pounds to 176, that was in 19 weeks, but up to 185 within a year, so gained 30 pounds in a whole year. I didn't know that my first year I was going to have a back injury that would impact my life forever. That slowed, in my very first year, 2001, we're talking 10 years ago, I had a major back injury that's impacted me the last 10 years.
Wow.
And maybe, I read about it a little bit in the book. I never know what might have been had I never hurt myself when I was at my biggest and strongest in the early days, and then had to go back to the drawing board years later. I didn't know that I was going to become friends with the best bodybuilder in the world, and have him be a buddy of mine and a role model of mine. That's Jay Cutler, current Mr. Olympia, 4-time winner, and he's been a friend of mine for 10 years. I didn't know that I personally and it's still very, very humbling, and it's even hard to accept. I didn't know that I personally would be able to impact so many lives directly and have people just email me like crazy saying that somehow I personally changed their life, and now they believe in themselves to do something they never thought they could, but they always wanted. But they never believed that they were good enough to do it, and now they know that they can. And now they know how to do it. They know the formulas. They know the training programs. They know the meal programs. They know the consistency, the dedication, the heart, the passion, all the stuff that it takes. And it changes their life forever. And I didn't know. I was just going about doing my thing because I liked animals and didn't think they should be hurt, and I was almost an athlete. And I just put the two together and just lived my own life. And sure enough, it's that led to a successful athletic career on a plant-based diet. And I didn't know all these opportunities would come, that I would work for a fantastic company, Sequel Naturals, Vega, and travel all over the world with them. I just came from 4 countries last week in the Caribbean, and now I'm in Southern California with my managers and coworkers and friends, and all these things I didn't really know would happen. That kind of surprised me. But it's happened, and I embrace all of it, and I'm so grateful for it. And I'm back in. I just want to throw this out there too. I'm in really good shape again after taking a little bit of a break from writing the book and going on tour. And I tell people, I wrote this on Facebook yesterday. Thousands of people were wondering, what am I doing? I'm getting in really, really, really good shape, probably better shape than any of the photos you've seen in the book. And I tell people, I am simply doing 3 things. I am working really hard, I'm following my book's advice, and I'm smiling a lot. And that's just the way it should be. I'm having so much fun that I would rather train than not train. I'm following my book's advice because I know that I've done it before, and I go back and look at how I did it, and then I even improve on that, or test new theories, or just get inspired by some of my own stories of wow, I've done something really difficult in the past, so I know I can do it now because I've already accomplished it. I've already done that. And I have this obsession with hard work. I'm so pumped up and excited about intense work ethic because when you find what you love to do, you don't feel like you're working. You're playing all day long. I'm taking this call with you right now, and I'm walking around Southern California with my shirt off up and down the street in Orange County, just doing what I love to do. And that's the way it should be. So it's those 3 things: hard work, following advice from someone who's done it before in whatever area of interest you have, and smiling as often as possible. That's the pursuit of happiness. That's the pursuit of wonderful life, and to great health, to great fitness, and to great relationships. I think that's a phenomenal way to go.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Robert. I certainly know that in the 7 years we've produced this particular program and the more than 10 years that I've been broadcasting in radio, when you talk, as you have so eloquently throughout the program, about being passionate about what your special purpose is. And through this show, we really try to bring a diverse variety of lifestyles to show people there are people out there doing this. Is this something that strikes a chord with you? Get started. This is what the outcome was for them. Some of them may have outstanding results, maybe being a Mr. Olympia, or you could just be someone who's probably won a title here and there, but more importantly, you found a life path that created ripple effects that inspired so many others to make transformations for themselves. One of the things that I really love that you say in your book, because today in America especially, we are so caught up about success happening overnight there are a lot of people out there that find a particular passionate path, but they don't see those results happening as quickly as they would like, so they tend to give up when success was just around the corner. It could be next week, next month, a year, 10 years down the road, it may be before you experience that. But the question is, if you stop, what else would you be doing?
Right. And I have a really important saying, and this is something that's going to be an absolute focus of my next book. I write a bunch of personal development books in addition to vegan bodybuilding and fitness. I've got a couple that are already completed, not out yet, but they will be, and then another one I'm working on called Driven, and that is that we should be aiming, our objective should be to live for 7/7 of the week. So many of us, most of us, live for the weekends, 2 7s, and I was never very good at math, except for in 5th grade. To me, 2 7s of enjoyment is not a good fraction. We just drag ourselves all week long, and then just can't wait for the weekends where we have about a day and a half of enjoyment, and then we're back to the grind again. And guess what? And this is why this is fundamentally important for anybody listening, because guess what? How hard is it for me to want to go exercise after I've spent all day, 8 hours or more, doing something that I don't like? I'm in a bad mood. Guess what? I don't feel like working out now. You know, I don't even feel like eating healthy food. I'm just going to go around and eat junk food, and I don't even feel like being a good partner to the person I'm in a relationship with because I don't like what I do every day. And that is probably the most important and most overlooked aspect in public and personal health and fitness. Most of us want to lose weight or gain weight. We want to do something. We're not necessarily
just feel better physiologically would be a
we want more energy. We want to feel better. But for most of us, it just happens to be statistically lose weight. So it's not that we don't want to. We clearly do. But we've positioned ourselves where it is so difficult just to get ourselves into an environment which will enable us to achieve our goals. And so that's why I focus so much on passion and consistency, because guess what? Whether you know this or not, I've wanted to be an author since I was 8 years old. And that took me 21 years to accomplish that. And there are so many times I give up. I wrote a 100-page book when I was 17. I wrote a whole bunch of books between the ages of 8 and 17. And then even between the ages of 17 and my late 20s, I wrote 6 or 7 other books. But I didn't have the confidence or the know-how to finish them, get them totally complete, and get them on shelves. I didn't know how to do that. But I wanted it bad enough. So finally, I just got real and got serious with myself and said, Robert, how bad do you want this? What does it mean to you? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get this done? So I allocated my time to make that happen. And it took 20 years. Most of us don't have the patience for that or the stick-to-it ability. But that's where passion really reveals itself. And I tell people also that if you don't know what your passion is, just look at what you're doing with your time. What would you do if you didn't have to go to work and you had all kinds of free time? What would you spend your time doing? What makes you jump out of bed excited to get to do what you do every day? What makes you smile more than anything else? What makes you can't wait to call home and tell your parents something or your best friend? Just breaking news that's so important in your life. Those things should make up as much as possible those 7 out of 7 days. And if we can do that, and if we can love what we're doing and enjoy ourselves, we're probably going to be pretty good at it because we immerse ourselves in that. And we do it maybe not just 8 hours a day, but we do it for 12 hours a day because it's so fun and it doesn't feel like work. And then we position ourselves to be smiling a whole lot more, and we want to be healthy. We want to be fit because we get so much fulfillment from every day in life that we want to be healthy. We want to be able to have more energy and stay awake longer to enjoy it. So that's what really everything comes down to for me. Is that passion and sticking to it day in and day out, because the journey is oftentimes more fulfilling than the actual achievement. I mean, the process of sitting there and training and writing are much, in many cases, much more fulfilling than actually competing or having a book on the shelf. It's the process. So find what you love to do and do it often.
Totally agree. The book is Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness, the complete guide to building your body on a plant-based diet, and also finding and realizing and walking, talking, and living your passion. Our guest today, Robert Cheeke. Robert, if you could you give out a website people can find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. Veganbodybuilding.com is my main website. I also have veganbodybuildingbook.com with pages and pages of samples from my book, testimonials, info about the book. People love it. It's inspiring tons of people. I've been Amazon bestseller for 2 months and top 100 in 2 categories. I'm having so much fun, obviously pumped up about it. And you can also find me on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Robert Cheeke.
Robert Cheeke, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate it.
We also want to encourage you out there to visit us at our website at beyond50radio.com. That's the number 50. Sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter. Also be sure to visit us at our blog where we archive our shows, have hot links and nice multimedia things for you to enjoy. Vegan bodybuilding and fitness, a good way to get started. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for joining us, and remember, live your day past halfway.